Meditation is a word that we've talked about in the first day of the Be Well Mind and Body Challenge. And just to remind you, meditation means to think or reflect over. It actually comes from the Latin meditare, which means to think or reflect. It may also come from the word medere, which means to heal. It means, again, to be involved in concentration or some kind of purpose to achieve a higher level of consciousness, which is a word, again, we'll talk about today. Prayer is a little bit different. It may come from the word Latin precarious, which means obtained by humble request. So, difference between meditation and prayer is that prayer that you're generally asking for something, asking, generally speaking, for something from a God. When you're ready, advance to the next slide. When you think about it, to be involved in mindfulness or meditation or prayer, one needs to have a level of consciousness. And that word consciousness is also a word that has many different meanings. Consciousness is said by psychologists to have this ability to sense who you are, to know where you are, to know that you are also separate from other things. Having a sense of self-identity is said to be consciousness. But of course there is the definition of a medical degree of consciousness. So if you've suffered some kind of a brain injury, for example, it may affect your level of consciousness. In the New Age or spirit world, we talk a lot about consciousness as being it's almost connection with spirit. So consciousness can be used interchangeably with spirit. So consciousness, does it exist in the brain? This is actually a fairly big question. Researchers haven't exactly found out where consciousness may exist. But there's a part of the brain known as the insula and the colostrum, and I'll show you on the next slide where that is, where they think it may exist. But to have the ability to be involved in prayer or meditation, you have to have a consciousness. And this is the higher level processing of the brain. So lower level animals, things like rats, things like spiders, ants, beetles, likely aren't involved in conscious activities. When you're ready, move to the next slide. Here we see a picture of the brain itself with the cerebral cortex being pulled back, the thin layer of the cerebral cortex. And you're looking at a deeper layer. It says the gyri of the insula. This is a part of the brain where it's thought that perhaps consciousness exists. When you're ready, move to the next slide. As mentioned, in order for prayer or meditation to be possible, consciousness had to evolve, and the cerebral cortex, this outer layer of the brain where the gray matter is, had to develop or had to evolve. And we see evidence of religious acts or signs that consciousness was evolving. We see it back about 100,000 years ago, back to Neanderthals, with simple acts of burial. Gives us a sense that people were thinking about things such as afterlife. Religious acts of spirituality are also shown on cave art in Chauvet and Lascaux, 32,000 and 17,000 years ago, respectively. You see signs of deities or gods that are carved out of stone, giving us a sense, again, that consciousness must have existed. There's evidence of burying a shaman or somebody who could connect with the spirit world, again, about 30,000 years ago. So this gives you a sense of how long consciousness has probably been around for. When you're ready, move to the next slide. So while we have evidence of consciousness evolving approximately 100,000 years ago with Neanderthals and their burial acts, the idea of a formal or organized religion really doesn't take place until people become less mobile. They're becoming, in other words, less of a hunter-gatherer society and much more of a agricultural society. And we see that in the ancient civilizations of Sumeria and Egypt around 4000 BC. They were worshipping many different gods. Around 2600 BC, there was also a ranking of gods, where there were gods in Sumeria, there were gods in Babylonia, and many of these gods had affiliations with natural observances. There was a sun god, there were funeral gods, there were gods of different kinds of weather, gods of protection. And many of these people prayed to these gods for assistance in things like, again, weather and growing their crops, but also for battles as well. The idea of polytheism, or many different gods, extended through to modern-day Hinduism, which still is said to be a polytheistic religion. Buddhism began about 300 to 500 BC, about the same time as Jainism, and through that we see a departure from the traditional polytheistic beliefs into more of a monotheistic belief, although Buddhism and Jainism thought to be somewhat irreligious in terms of not having a specific god. Looking specifically at meditation, meditation really comes out of Hinduism and written in ancient Vedic texts, approximately 1700 to 1750 BC. These ancient texts describe this meditation, this process of getting in touch with the various gods. Buddhism, as mentioned, 300 to 500 BC, developed that even further, taking meditation from the Hinduist beliefs and expanding upon it. The Taoists really found, again, 300, 400 BC, started to emphasize meditation, but also living in harmony with nature, this connection with the outside. It wasn't until the mid-1800s that meditation was brought over with Chinese immigrants. They brought over Buddhist meditation. And as also people started to travel out towards the east, when people would go visit China and they would bring back some of these Buddhist teachings, which began in the late 1800s. We're now going to do a 5-minute guided visualization. This visualization is a form of meditation, of course, and if possible, try to follow my words and see if you can move into a state of deep relaxation. This, of course, will allow your body and your mind to gain the full benefits of meditation. Again, this is a 5-minute meditation. Make sure you're seated, upright, hands and feet in a symmetrical position, as we learned on the day 1 meditation challenge, and hopefully in a place that you won't be disturbed for the next 5 minutes. At the sound of the bell, we'll begin the meditation, and I will start the guided visualization. When the bell sounds again, the meditation will come to a conclusion and will be finished today's challenge. I want you to think of a place that you have been that was incredibly relaxing and peaceful. Perhaps it was when you were on a holiday. Maybe it was a place you went to as a child. Was it a beach? Was it a mountain? Was it a hideout by a creek, maybe by a lake? Just take a second and think about that place that you have been, that you associate with incredible relaxation and feelings of peacefulness. As you think about this place, what does it feel like? Is there a temperature in the air? What kind of clothing are you wearing? Is there wind or a breeze that's blowing? Is there feelings underneath your feet for where you're standing? Or if you're sitting, what does that feel like? Are there sounds that you can hear? Is there anything that you can smell, perhaps in the air? Notice as you think of this place, how it makes you feel. Do your muscles relax? Notice right now as you're thinking of this place, how you're breathing. Does your breath fill your belly? perhaps you notice that the tension in your muscles, the muscles of your upper trapezius and your upper shoulder, they start to relax. Notice as you think of this place that was incredibly relaxing and peaceful, that you had nothing else on your mind. There was no sense of urgency, nowhere else you had to be. Just completely relaxed. Continue to visualize this place as if you were there right now. Notice a state of calm coming over your body and your mind. Notice how easily you breathe. With the remaining 1 minute of this 5-minute meditation, just stay with that image for a silent meditation. At the sound of the bell, meditation will come to a conclusion.